We have an exciting agenda. We're going to get kicked off talking about who we are at IEI. I know many of you are familiar with us, so apologize for the repeat. And then we're really excited to continue to partner with NCDIT's Office of Digital Equity and Literacy Program. We work with them in a number of ways, and we'll be hearing from Minister Phillip Holloway. And then a panel discussion with some incredible faith leaders and nonprofit partners on the ground in North Carolina. We'll wrap up with some Q&A, so feel free to put your questions throughout the day in the chat today, and then some upcoming opportunities we will be emailing out and letting y'all know about that. So thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Keep doing that in the chat. We look forward to meeting you later during the Q&A portion. And I'm going to turn it over to Ellen to introduce our staff today that are on the call and IEI.
Hi, y'all. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I see some people are still trickling in, so make sure you put who you are and where you're coming in from and what you do in the chat so we can all get to know each other a little bit better. So my name is Ellen. I work at the Institute for Emerging Issues with the Faith and Community Initiative. And we also have Jen on the call, who is our communications director. And so any of the emails that I send out or Kylie sends out, she makes them look really good to make sure that we don't have any more mistakes than necessary in those emails for us. So today we're going to go over, kind of give you a little brief on what IEI is if you're new to IEI, the NCDIT Odell program, have a panel discussion, have some time for Q&A, and then have an opportunity to share some upcoming events and opportunities that are going on. And if y'all have any that you'd like to share, feel free to put them in the chat, send them to Kylie, and she can include them in our follow-up email that we're going to send out as well, because we want to make sure we highlight your events that are going on. So for the Institute for Emerging Issues, is a nonpartisan public policy think tank, and we are housed at NC State University in the Hunt Library. We connect North Carolinians across sectors, regions, and perspectives for collaborative work on key emerging issues that are affecting our state's future economic competitiveness. So our big hallmark event, what really got the Institute started, is the Emerging Issues Forum. So our 2025 Emerging Issues Forum is on Future Forward Energy, and it's on February 19th, this upcoming year, 2025, which feels really weird to say. But according to Duke Energy, electricity demand in North Carolina is growing at the fastest rate seen in 30 years. Expected load growth by 2030 is now 8 times higher than the expectation set in the 2022 North Carolina Carbon Plan. So North Carolina's current electric grid is aging, which makes meeting the needs of our growing population and evolving economy is going to require rapid capacity expansion and diverse resources of electricity. So over the next year, IEI is going to be working with state and local partners to examine the changes driving the electric grid of our future. So as I mentioned, it's going to be in Raleigh on February 19th, 2025, and rural faith leaders are able to attend for free due to our grant partners, the Duke Endowment. So if that's something that you're interested in or somebody that might be interested in, please reach out to me. I'm happy to chat. And so what is the Faith and Community Initiative? So our Faith and Community Initiative started in 2015 with the Duke Endowment to fold rural North Carolina faith leaders into local and statewide leadership on emerging issues. So at IEI, we're able to invite rural faith leaders to our Emerging Issues Forum and our annual faith conference. And we are able to help provide technical assistance on community congregation partnerships all throughout the year. Our network includes more than 400 clergy, lay leaders, and partners. So part of our grant is also to do some of these peer network groups. So we get together online like we're doing right now, partnering with some of our intermediary organizations or some of your organizations to be able to highlight your events and talk about what's going on in all areas of North Carolina. So if there's something you would like to highlight or you want to get out or want to chat more about, please reach out to me. We're happy to help host that for you. So in the chat, you'll find a link to be able to sign up for our Faith and Community newsletter and to be able to learn more about the forum. And I'm going to pass it back over to Kylie, and she's going to tell you all about what Band NC is.
Absolutely. Seeing that we have a lot of friends online, so I'll make it short and sweet for those that have already partnered with us. But Band NC is building a new digital economy in North Carolina. We got started, like Ellen said, during one of our emerging issues forums that we have every year. This was in 2020, just a few weeks before the coronavirus pandemic started, where we all if we didn't know before, understood the importance of being able to connect online to make sure we could go to work, school, and get really important health information. And so Band C got started with some emergency grants. Some folks on the call were part of that process, and we transitioned into really supporting regional plans. So this could be at the county level or regional level, but we know that by having a digital inclusion plan, which is similar to a community health assessment, strategic plan, economic plan that your local governments do all the time, that you would be in a great space in order to know that the digital needs of your community, the assets that you have, and also be prepared for upcoming funding. And we'll hear about it a bit later, but we are in the midst of historic funding right now, where actually the implementation goals that are written out in plans, whether they were made this year or a few years ago, actually have a chance of being funded with extra capacity, which is what we hear all the time. There's not enough funding and staff on the ground in order to make this happen. So we're so excited that all 100 counties are now in planning process. So that means a group has gotten together. They're really looking at the data of who's connected, who's not on the ground. And with Bandit C, we really focus on digital inclusion, adoption, not just access. Over $1 billion is coming to North Carolina to really improve our infrastructure, which is absolutely key, especially in our rural areas. We hear over and over again that access is the #1 issue. But we always want to be talking about when people do have access, can they afford it? Do they have the resources available? So we always want to harken back to definition from NDIA of the 5 points of digital inclusion work. So this is access to affordable high-speed internet, access to a device that meets the needs of the user. In North Carolina, this means usually a tablet or a laptop. There's over 400,000 North Carolinians, that's a low estimate, that do not have the device they need in order to access work, school, worship online. And we know that a smartphone is really important in how many North Carolinians connect. That does not mean they have adequate 5G access or that they can do everything they need for everyday life on there. Of course, access to digital skills training, we'll hear about that a little bit later. Everything from turning on a computer to learning how to code and quality technical support. We know technology is changing so fast. So technical support and apps and content designed for self-sufficiency, knowing that capacity is usually lower, especially in our rural communities, is really important and a key facet to not just making sure that devices get into people's hands, but they know how to use it and they know who to go to if as technology is changing. I want to quickly mention some of the resources that we have. This will be in our follow-up email. So Band-Aid has a digital inclusion resource hub. We've tried to include all of the digital inclusion plans on here. In the future, we hope to have contacts from these spaces. We have the statewide digital equity plan, which is really exciting to see the future of North Carolina over the next 5 years, what we'll be focusing on. That is a source of a lot of the statewide funding as well. So I highly recommend scanning over it. It's long, as Dr. Taylor shared at the Eastern North Carolina meeting on Monday, but it's very important. We have our digital inclusion planning guide. Again, you can see how folks are creating this plan across North Carolina. We'd love to plug you in. If you are in a county or region and want to know who in your region is doing the work, we have an answer, and they probably need you to be involved. We also have information on the BEAD challenge process. So that is for all the nonprofits and local governments. I'm sure you are in the thick of it right now, really trying to understand those FCC maps that share who's connected and who's not at the census level data. A lot of that is incorrect. So we have nonprofits and local governments on the call, and they have been going through those data, challenging to really say, no, this is correct, this is not correct, and that will lead to more funding for regions. That process ends October 3rd. And while individuals cannot challenge themselves, there's a few ways for residents to get involved as well. We'll make sure that this is in the follow-up email, and making sure that your local community organizations are part of this process. There's only a few days left. It's really important that we get as many eyes on this as possible. And similar to Ellen, we have a connected newsletter. I'm sure that's how many of you joined us today. We send out monthly updates all around digital inclusion in North Carolina. So we try to spread the word about what's happening in your areas, job opportunities, funding opportunities, and of course, a lot of webinars. We sent it out earlier this week, and it's all focused on Digital Inclusion Week, which is coming up. We have some incredible events happening in person, hybrid, and virtual all around North Carolina. Huge thanks to Phillip's office for gathering those resources together. Again, that will be in the follow-up email. We really hope that can be a way for us all to connect and really highlight digital inclusion in the next few weeks. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ellen for the stars of the show today.
All right, so we've got some pretty awesome people here with us today, so I'm gonna give you a little background on them. So first we have Minister Phillip Holloway. Minister Phillip is a program coordinator at North Carolina Department of Information Technology, where he works with stakeholders, including some of our speakers today, to design, implement, and evaluate initiatives that enhance digital equity and literacy in the state. Minister Phillip has a Bachelor of Business Administration and an Associate of Arts in Information Technology, as well as certifications in working smart, soft skills, and career development facilitation. In addition, he is the executive director of the Good Light Foundation Incorporated, which is a nonprofit organization that provides educational and mentoring programs for youth and adults in underserved communities. He is also a minister at Job's Chapel Baptist Church, and his resume is very, very long. Wow, that's impressive. We also have Reverend Dr. Amazing Don Baldwin-Gibson, who serves as the pastor of Peletah Ministries and the president of the Peletah Institute for Building Resilient Communities, and is the superintendent of Peletah Academic Center for Excellence, or PACE Academy. Dr. Dawn and her husband, the late Pastor Anthony Gibson, founded Peletah in 2011 and PACE in 2017 and the Peletah Institute in 2020. They later founded the Eastern North Carolina Church and Community Resiliency Collaborative. She is the past chairperson of the NC VOAD Spiritual and Emotional Care Committee, the founding chairperson of the Pamlico County Disaster Recovery Center, and a founding member of the NC Inclusive Disaster Recovery Network. She's a graduate of Shaw University, East Carolina University, and Christian Leadership University. Also a very impressive resume. And next we have Reverend Eric Reece, who is the pastor of Robbinsville United Methodist Church. If y'all don't know where that is, think all the way the point of North Carolina, basically before you get right into Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina. He's all the way out there representing us from the far west today. He's a native of Valdese, North Carolina, and has worked as a United Methodist pastor for over 40 years. He has served on a number of nonprofit boards and is currently a guide team member of Imagine Hub, Boundless Impact Incorporated, and a member of Andrew's Lions Club. His interests include fighting food insecurity and helping rural communities. He's a graduate of Western Carolina University and CTS Emory University, and he has been blessed with a spouse, Beverly, for 38 years. And one of the projects he is most proud of was working on the Dogwood Health Trust 2020 Census Project. And Eric can give you the best tour of Grand County ever if you end up in Western North Carolina. Knows everyone there and the place to get the best honey. And so we're going to share in the chat some of the groups that Eric works with, so y'all can check them out as well. And last but not least, we have Teresa Rush Edwards, who is the founder and president of the ESG Foundation, which recently received a Digital Champions Grant to establish tech hubs within rural and minority churches to serve the aging population. Ms. Rush Edwards recently completed her MA in Christian Practice at Duke Divinity School, among her many degrees, and serves in various leadership positions at Grace Bible Fellowship. So thank y'all so much for coming today. I'm going to chat with Phillip a little bit because we want to start off today at the statewide level and talk about his role at NCDIT and also as a minister in Eastern North Carolina. So Phillip, can you describe your role at NCDIT and how it has evolved over the past year?
Sure. As a program coordinator, I came in to lead the Affordable Connectivity Program, but soon after it was announced that it will be winding down, and we all know that that ran out of funding on June 1st. So since then, I've taken on the role as a program officer under the Digital Champions Grant, and that has been an extremely fulfilling experience. Just having the opportunity to see firsthand the work that's being done across the state to eliminate the digital divide has been nothing short of rewarding. I mean, being able to see programs like Dr. Don Gibson's program, Ms. Teresa Rush Edwards program with ESG. It's been so many, and it's just been extremely rewarding to see that work being done.
So now that you mentioned the ACP ending, can you share some other broadband affordability resources and programs like 211?
Sure. Our office will soon be announcing the details of our partnership with 211, and we'll also be launching a tech resource finder. And I believe that those efforts will make it easier than ever to inform the community about available resources, because it's not always that they're not available. It's just that sometimes providers find it difficult to reach out and connect with the communities. And I do believe that those resources will make that a little bit easier and help reduce some of that.
Awesome. So your office was recently awarded over $36 million in digital champion, or recently awarded over $36 million in digital champion grantees. Can you tell us a bit about the faith communities that were selected and why that's important?
Yes. So we do recognize that churches and faith-based faith organizations are essential because they do have deep roots in their communities. By providing resources to those key anchor institutions, we do move one step closer to bridging the digital divide. And that's why we awarded grants to organizations like Peletah, United Southern Conference, Southern Vision Alliance, Caterpillar Ministries, and the ESG Foundation. And through those projects, communities across the state will benefit from programs such as digital navigator programs, device distribution and loaner programs, free public Wi-Fi hotspots, telehealth and teletherapy spaces, digital skills training, digital translation device distribution, cybersecurity training. And honestly, that's just the beginning, because I'm sure as these programs continue to evolve, we'll see other organizations begin to take on the work as well.
Awesome. So how do you see digital needs and opportunities in your own congregation? You shared with Kylie and I as we were preparing a really awesome Cash App example. If you don't mind sharing that and some other ways.
Yes. In our church, one of the issues that we ran into, especially during COVID, we were streaming services, and the traditional means of tithes and offerings, it was a little bit more difficult. So through Cash App, we actually provided some training, because our congregation, they were a little more hesitant to take on those types of technologies. So with that digital skills training and allowing them to be able to just use their phone and give, it made it so much easier. And now a lot of our congregation gives that way. So that's just one example of how the skills training enables churches to be able to serve their communities and provide access in a more meaningful way. Also, just streaming church services in general, that was something that our congregation initially didn't think that they wanted to take on, but they really didn't have a choice during COVID. So once they took that on, now we have individuals that'll go visit their family, across the state or in other states, and they're still able to participate in our services. So it really makes it easier for our congregations to participate in more than just worship opportunities.
Yes, awesome. Thank you for sharing. So now I'm going to pass it off to you, Phillip, to get to interview our amazing panel. Um, so if we'll highlight Eric, Teresa, and Dr. Dawn as well. And we can't wait to hear what y'all have to share.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So the first question that I have for you all is, how has your organization worked with your community to address digital needs?
Well, I can jump in and start. So we've worked with organizations through partnering with Cramden Institute, and at our regional collaborative this past Monday, they said that our first event was in 2013. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but we partnered with Cramden. We got food. We went into Jones County, and we were able to distribute about 130 devices, work with an internet provider for $10 a month internet services. And from there, we just continue to do the work. And it's all about building those partnerships, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And well, before we kind of build on to that, does anyone else have any input?
I was going to share briefly when COVID hit and they had to close down our school. That's when we had to really work hard and come up with some things, and that was really an education and being able to understand. Like I did not know that they have hotspots for individuals, and then they have a hotspot that's more for like a group. And then so we were able to work with our school systems to buy some hotspots for students that were individual, but also the school system was able to buy some hotspots for community that they placed on school buses and churches, rescue squads, just throughout the community in these anchor institutions that help the students be able to go online and do their homework. And so we learned a lot during that time that we've continued to use in trying to reach out to our community.
Thank you.
And I'll add to that as well. So thank you for the invitation to be here. The pandemic, what highlighted for me personally was seeing my mother, who is now 85 years old, being disconnected from family and also disconnected from her church. And that was really the impetus for this, the initiative of Connect North Carolina Rural. How do we particularly focus on our aging, which we call golden citizens, help them get connected, learn how to use their devices, and particularly help them get ready for telehealth. So really it was watching my mom struggle and understanding it's not just my mom, it's across many of our churches and communities, and particularly our aging population is maybe overlooked sometimes when it comes to technology and how it can help them. So how do we help them be comfortable with the technology and also get prepared for telehealth?
That's a great point. And the mental health aspect of being unable to attend your worship services, that really does play a major role in overall health, because we do have a need to be connected. So we thank you for sharing that and being innovative in your approach to eliminating the digital divide. So thank you. Does anyone else want to provide any input before we ask the next question? All right, great. So the next question is, what are the biggest barriers you're seeing?
Well, I think you've heard it multiple times. For the aging community, one, having affordable access is a barrier. And it's not just the aging community, rural communities in particular have the issue of one, infrastructure being there, two, being able to afford it and getting access to devices that are not so old that they cannot use them yet, need to get them refreshed. So that cost of getting access and connected to the internet is a big barrier. And then, as I mentioned, just the infrastructure in the rural communities is not up to par with what we need for our state and for our country moving forward. For us to continue to be competitive, not only with other nations, but also just remain constant and up to date within our own state and our community. So,
One of the struggles we have is just with the beautiful mountains we have in Graham County. Almost 70% of our land is national park or national forest. And so that makes it difficult as far as the infrastructure. Also, we have a very old infrastructure with a lot of folks talking about not being able to be connected. If their internet goes out, their phone goes out, and vice versa. And so they really struggle with that. One of the positive things is that the Eastern Band of Cherokees, they started their own internet company to where they're able to get internet to their tribal members. And this has been fantastic for the community. And that's helped some people out. But just, here in Western North Carolina, there's a lot of areas where companies, they're just not going to make any money because it's just not here as far as being able to run the lines that are needed. And there's just not enough customer base. So we're really dependent upon a lot of help just to get people online and give them adequate internet service.
Yes.
Can I just go back to something that Dr. Ruth Edwards just talked about, is that the mental health piece. And so when we're talking about connectivity, it literally is not just wires and computers and devices, but it really is about human connection. I think the work that the Surgeon General has done on this issue around loneliness is something that we have to really have a serious conversation about. Some people just are not coming back out into the world. I mean, they're just not. And so they're still not back in their churches. They're still not in their community groups and organizations. And so then how do we build those connections when infrastructure is challenging? And so we just had this interesting situation that I've lived in Eastern North Carolina all of my life as an adult. And when the recent storm that was really like no name storm came through, we didn't have phones. We didn't have internet. I went a month without the internet in our home. And the ability or the lack thereof for connectivity in a disaster when you don't know when roads are flooded is dangerous. And so we really have to think of this like Homeland Security serious. Because if there is something that attacks or something that we need to know, how are we going to get information to people who have no ability? They don't have a phone line, they don't have the internet, they don't have the ability to know pertinent information. And so I think that as we are having these conversations, there's this human piece that I'm really glad that we're focused on. But there's this other piece about the what ifs. And it's not even what ifs anymore because we literally just lived this less than 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I think this work that Director Taylor, who I am grateful for her leadership, and the work that Maggie and Minister Phillip are doing, that it is moving our state forward. And we're thinking about these things that Ellen and Kylie are bringing to these conversations, because at some point we may need to know, how do we connect hundreds of thousands of people when we're not really sure what the infrastructure is going to look like?
Yes, those are amazing points, and thank you for that. I mean, when we think about the connectivity aspect, I think a lot of the times we don't put enough focus on the safety aspect of things. Even just knowing when tornadoes are coming and getting that early alert that gives you an opportunity to seek shelter. You brought up some amazing points, so thank you again. So do we have anyone else that would like to give any input? All right. So the next question that I have for you all is that many groups are eager to partner with faith communities because they're trusted institutions with key resources. What support do you need from others, for example, local government or nonprofits or organizations like Band NC?
Well, first, I want to thank you, Philip, and as Dr. Gibson mentioned, the work that the North Carolina Department of IT is doing to move this forward. Something you mentioned about what you're already doing in your church is something to keep in mind, of your being and not only an advocate but an example of using technology, showing your congregants and the community how technology is not necessarily something to be scared of, but how you can incorporate it into your day-to-day life. So continue that championship of high-speed internet for North Carolina, in particular our rural communities. And one thing Dr. Gibson mentioned of the what ifs, of understanding if there was a tragedy or something, a natural disaster that happened, how do we address that with infrastructure? Something I heard when I was participating in some of the town halls with the state is the need to have high-speed internet considered an essential basic
Yes.
utility by the government. And in doing so, creating the subsidy programs that will help those who are low income families have access to and afford it. So the ACP program was great, and unfortunately, it ended. But now, when you look at high speed internet as being an essential utility like water and shelter and food, the government takes a different focus on it. And so, champion that and helping us get to the point where it is considered an essential basic utility for our citizens, I think is a must. And I can add, I have a whole list of like 10, but I just wanted to raise that as something that needs some an advocate and championship behind it.
Thank you. Those are great points. Anyone else?
I was just going to mention, like today is a great example of bringing everybody to the table. And I think that what we struggle with so much is that we have different groups working on the same goals, but they don't always communicate or don't always sit down. And I'm just so grateful for all the groups that are working on this. And I know that sometimes that all the learning curve that I have to put into moving forward on stuff, that somebody already has this, that I wish I could just say, hey, give this to me. And we've just had to, again, when we started out with our worship services being streamed, we started out with a phone, and now we've gone to all this equipment that I never knew even existed. And so I just wish sometimes that we could all just sit down together like we're doing today and share and work together and find out the some of the best ways that we're learning that we're able to help as many people as possible in our communities.
Yes.
Can I just jump in really quickly, Minister Phillip?
Sure. Sure.
So, life, I hear the young people saying it all the time, life be lifing. And so we never know when this shift will happen. So, our church has been back in the building for some time. And then back in November, very unexpectedly for me at least, my husband had suffered a massive heart attack here at our school, and transitioned about a week and a half later. And so what I realized was that, and our leadership team realized, was that we probably needed to go back online for a while and just try to get ourselves acclimated to the new world we were living in. And so I think maybe about a week or so ago, somebody said, well, how many people have you impacted since you've been hybrid, we call it, but been virtual? More than 400,000 people
Wow.
have been since the start of this year. What I realize is that people are out there, they want to be connected, and this gives us an opportunity to really think about and rethink and not wait for some tragedy or something that goes wrong that we have to get back online, but always continually having digital classes, digital navigators that are in the community. We have to have a real conversation about institutional mistrust. Some people just are not going to go to the hospital. They're just not going to do it, but they will go and show up at Pastor Eric's church and say, can I get on telehealth? Can I do teletherapy? Can I connect and get some, resources this way? Because here's the thing. FEMA requires you to get online to put in an application. So we have got to understand that this is the world. This is that song. I'm not singing it. A whole new world. Yeah, that's where we are.
You did it.
That part.
You did it.
And so we really have to be able to continuously adjust. And I'm the same way. We did a hybrid on Monday. I was sitting there going, there is no way that Director Taylor's going to be in Raleigh and the people here going to hear, and it's not going to be feedback. And then the people all over the state that are on this line, there's no way all that's going to happen. And our tech person, who happens to be my son, rigged all this stuff up, and it was amazing. We had people from the White House that were on. I was like, what? But how did it happen? It happened because we keep moving it forward, and that's what we got to continuously do.
And thank you for all that you do and continue to do. I mean, the work is never ending. Well, I mean, the passion for it is the thing that we all share. And we see that across the state and across the world, leaders are stepping up to do this work. And as long as you have informed leaders, we can make sure that we make the impact that we need to make. So thank you all for that. And I also want to say this, for anyone that hasn't contacted our office, please do. If you're working in the faith community and you want to learn about funding opportunities or how you can help the communities that you serve, please reach out to us. I'll put our email in the chat once we're done. All right, so would anyone else like to give any input on that question before we move on to the next? All right.
One last thing that came to mind as Dr. Gibson was talking. Our ability to include all of our citizens, and I know that's a difficult thing, but representatives from every age group. So I love that you said your son was involved on the tech side. How do we make sure they are part of the solution? Meaning our young folks who are 18, 19, 35, who need access for skills training, some for just becoming creators, creating a business. But how do we make sure they understand the impact to the aging population, to our K through 12, and get them involved in the solution? Because it has to include all of us. We can see what we've seen. They probably can see something different, and we need to hear the voices from them as well.
I agree. And that's been huge because in our area, I'm probably the youngest, also the youngest minister and really the youngest individual around that goes from church to help. And I don't think that the other individuals in my age group understand how much of a demand that is. I mean, I get pulled in every direction just to come in and hook up cameras or maybe troubleshoot microphones and what streaming devices are you using? And I mean, we all need to be a part of the task of bridging that digital divide because there's so much that we can learn from each other. So definitely, and thank you for that. All right, so the next question that I have for you all is discussions about technology, income, literacy, skills, AI, and privacy are complex. How can faith leaders help guide these conversations, especially with how fast technology is evolving?
Well, I'll just say we are just jumping into it. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. So we live in rural Eastern North Carolina. So we've had some folks that have been like, I don't like it. I don't want it. I get it. But here's the thing, it's not going to stop it from coming. The Mack truck is still coming through, whether you want it to or not. And so we need to be an informed populace. So it's really just going into it. The AI conversation, woo, we are working through it. But here's the thing, it's better to understand it than to have no concept of it. And so, part of digital literacy, it's about, look, I get you don't want to put any information online, and I get that. But here's the thing. Do you have the transportation to drive down to the store every 2 weeks that you need to pay? Maybe not. So this might be a way. And this is how you can do it in the most secure way. So we're just having those conversations. And they are not always the quickest conversations, but it's having that commitment. And that's the thing about being a trusted messenger in our communities, is that it's the long game. This isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. We got a long road ahead because there are other things that will come. And so when people know that you're not just in it and out, but that you are there, this is my community. And so it matters. It's just having difficult conversations sometimes. But we have to have them. When COVID-19 happened, and it was, people were talking about vaccines. I still don't know how it happened, but the Surgeon General got up at the White House and said, hey, we got 3 partners we want to identify. Peletah Ministries was one of them because of the work we were doing with seniors, but it was about getting into the community and having hard conversations. We can agree to disagree. We just don't have to be disagreeable. We still love you, but we just have to have those hard conversations.
Indeed. And I mean, just to add to that, which I see that Reverend Reece, you jumped in, so I'll just say this real quick. I live in Swan Quarter, North Carolina, where we have really no real resources. And for us, having the skills to be able to navigate websites like Best Buy or Amazon, I mean, that's essential for us because, I mean, we're getting things delivered now that 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't possible. So for those that are bed bound and being able to speak to their kids that may be off at college or maybe just ordering the supplies that they need is very essential. And getting those skills is changing society as we know it. All right.
I was just going to thank you for sharing all that. And, we're overwhelmed. We're just so overwhelmed with everything, just trying to handle everything else that's going on in the world, in the rural communities. And I know that one of the things that churches, faith leaders can do is, for lack of a better term, we can be the squeaky wheel that's going to the commissioners, to the people, making calls, doing everything we can to say, hey, this is something that's very serious. This is something we really need. And if we don't do it now, the old saying, you can pay me now, you can pay me a lot more later. This is going to cost us a lot more than just dollars and cents. And I know my primary doctor, I have to go out of town, out of county. But I have an app now on my phone to ask for medicine, set up appointments and stuff like that. And there was a learning curve on that for me. And again, talking about the navigators and stuff, that if we can just be able to get tablets or smartphones or anything for some of the seniors or others, that they'll be able to navigate some of these apps, that they'll be able to look into their health care, their SNAP, their anything, DSS, anything that they need to do. It would make life easier for a whole lot of folks. And again, it's just it seems like every day we're overwhelmed with everything that's going on. But I do hope that the faith communities continue to be prophetic and say, hey, this is a priority. This is what we need to do. This is what I hope you'll be doing. We just can't put this to the back of the line. This needs to be something that's primary.
Yes. And do we have someone else chiming in?
One, I was just going to say thank you again to Dr. Gibson and Reverend Reece for what you shared, because what I hear you saying is being present for your community, hearing and listening to what they have to say, acknowledging the gaps and the challenges is what we have to do. And what you're already doing, being the example of using technology personally, but also commissioning your church to be able to take advantage of. And same thing to you, Reverend Holloway. And then the last thing I'll add is as you mentioned, Reverend Reece, to be the squeaky wheel, but to share, being able to share, being willing to share beyond your church to other churches, to government, to anyone who will listen to the challenges that you're having, so they can hear from the voices of your community. These are the challenges we have. This is just not something next year. This is something we're facing today. That if we don't address it, then next year it's going to look even worse than what it does today. So I thank you for sharing what you are experiencing in your communities.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was actually the last question. If you all don't have anything else that you want to add, I can turn this over to Ellen. And I do appreciate you all for everything that you shared. That was a wealth of information that you provided us. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you all so much for sharing. I feel like the quote to really just encapsulate kind of our goal for the day that we didn't realize is what Dr. Dawn said. It's better to understand it than to have no concept of it. And we're always learning to try to get a little bit more understanding in how we can, be a better human for ourselves and for our communities. So now is the time we're going to open it up to everybody. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you have to share. I see Tara put in the chat that disability intersects with a lot of issues that have been mentioned, but she'd love to hear more about work to build inclusion for people who are blind, deaf, intellectually disabled, for example, and connecting them to supports and to access technology is another huge need in North Carolina. Yes, Tara, I don't personally have any answers to that, but if anybody has any connections on the call, Dr. Dawn unmuted so fast, she knows. She's here.
My husband worked for 18 years with Easter Seals UCP. And so the work around IDD and the work around the neurodivergent populations has just always been critically important. And so it's really about building those partnerships. And so whether it's through Easter Seals or Trillium, even at our own school, which is trauma informed, we are one of maybe 4 or 5 private schools in the state of North Carolina that has its own Department of Public Instruction certified special education program. And so whether our scholars are on the spectrum or not, we work with them, utilize the skills that they have so that we are able to make sure that they too can access, have that very important access. Great question.
Yes, thank you. And Eric put in the chat that the Lions Club works a lot in this area as well. But feel free to put in the chat if you know any other resources, or feel free to unmute yourself and pipe in if you know of something specific. And Dr. Kenny Sharon has put in the chat that the NC Assistive Technology Program would also be a great help. So great questions there. I know, I feel like a lot of faith leaders, some are on this call and some that will watch this in the recording as that goes out, will really resonate with the churches being hesitant to be online and be virtual, but you know, that's the reality that they're in, and to adapt to that. So, and kind of like Dr. Dawn said, you never know when that occasion unfortunately might arise again for that need to really just take that time and step away. I know this is kind of a weird, odd example, it feels like, but when I was, growing up in my home church, there found some mold in my church, and we were able to move our Sunday school classes over to a former Methodist home for children that was next door that had lots of rooms. But then in order to have worship, we had to move over to the local funeral home, and use their space, which was great. But you know, what if there was a need for that day? I don't remember if we did or didn't use it, but how amazing it would be now to have that um, opportunity to join each other online. Oh, and there's an organization having an expo next week on assistive technology program. Kenny, you are such a great resource. Kenny, actually, do you mind unmuting and kind of sharing about cooperative extension and some of their work for those that are unfamiliar?
Yeah, I'd be
Kind of
glad
put you on the
to.
spot there.
I'm here now. Yeah, Corporate Extension, I sent a list of digital skills educators. Feel free to reach out to folks. I know several of our digital skills educators have been involved in doing some classes in churches. So they will go anywhere you can gather a crowd. I'll just put it that way. So call them. In our application with the for the NTIA grant that we just submitted Monday, we've actually if we get the grant, if we're incorporating and we have partnered with the North Carolina Digital Assistive Technology Program to include assistive tech within our digital skills education program and demonstrating that and how things you can connect. Another thing you're talking about that you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned about folks with disabilities. We're rolling out, and we'll hear more about it soon. We're rolling out remote worker certification training. And I had to undertake the course that helps you be certified to do that, right? So it's run from Utah State University Extension. So we're going to be an affiliate of that program. But I was in the class with people who want to be remote workers. And to my surprise, it shouldn't have surprised me, but I just never thought about it, is they a lot of people taking that class had disabilities. And the reason they wanted to take the class is because something inhibited them from going to a workplace, whether it was neurodiversity, whether it was a physical disability, or whether it was just some other disability that they dealt with. But they thought, and I think rightly so, that remote work would be a possibility for them. So they were in that class. So that just opened another, just an avenue of thinking for me that remote worker certification could benefit people with disability. So anyway, hopefully you'll hear more about that kind of stuff. Well, the remote workers training is going to happen anyway. We're already in the process of that. So, but the whole assistive technology is, we're hoping to include that in our next round of funding. So thanks, Ellen, for letting me talk a minute.
Yes, of course. Thank you. And Dr. Rush Edwards, I see you've unmuted. Do you have something to add?
Yes, I did. In the disability area, I know we think of hearing and other types of disabilities. I'm going to share from just the experience with my mother, who, as I mentioned, is 85. When we age, our bodies change, things change. They create another level or a different level of disability we may not think about. My mom has arthritis in her hand. And what I found with her is the tapping, sliding, using tablets and phones, or even using a mouse. She finds it quite difficult. And so I raised that as something for us to think about because just coming from the technology world, most of the technology when it's created it's not created with that in mind. So as we age, things are going to change and we can't stop. Some things we can't prevent. How do we help address that for the aging community as well? Just something to think about.
No, absolutely. That's so important. My grandmother is just turned 87. And when we put internet in her house in 2020, when she had a heart procedure and we all turned to work from home, she was like, we got to get that out of there. It's going to mess up my house. Like just not even knowing how the internet works. So I can only imagine somebody who knows how it works, but then it's just too painful to do. I know that's not very thrilling. I know another thing, I don't know much about it, but it just kind of makes me think of aging populations as it comes to technology and hearing assistance. I know the new AirPods are supposed to be able to be qualified, the Apple AirPods, as a hearing aid, a hearing device. And so kind of how we can incorporate some, maybe not we, because this is not my specialty, but just learn more about how people are with hearing, different hearing abilities might be impacted by some of our virtual or even in-person technology and how the interference might happen there, as we're always learning more. Yes, as Kylie said, it's the cheaper assistive technology without prescription, and it's huge. And a hearing aid is also something that my grandmother has. So if you ever want to vent about old people, aging, caregiving problems, I'm your girl. 100%, but that's not what this is about today. Anybody else have any questions? I know Tara, I'll just kind of follow up your question in the chat or comment was thinking of the DHHS, Assistive Technology, and the Centers for Independent Living, many of whom provide digital skills training for people with disabilities and disability rights. North Carolina help with legal rights such as how to request accommodations, including digital inclusion. That's awesome. Kind of following up as far as aging, I know this Friday is the North Carolina Coalition on Aging annual gathering. And that will be in Raleigh. I don't think it's virtual, but I will be there happy to take notes and share those with anybody who's interested. Dr. Dawn, I think you have something you'd like to add. Feel free.
So I know that we have had this robust conversation today, and so much of those that are here are part of this faith community. And I just always try to, as Pastor Eric was just talking about, it can be overwhelming because there's so much going on in the world and so much that every one of us is doing. But please, 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 even if you have to put it in your phone, take some time to take care of yourself. I say it all the time, no is a complete sentence. And my therapist said something to me many years ago that I still hold on to. She's like, you are not Jesus Jr. She said, you're not. And so let's make sure that we are taking time in this really heavy work to take the time to take care of ourselves. It is not selfish to take care of yourself because we need it. Pastor Eric, enjoy some more time with your beautiful wife. Go for a ride today. Do something that's just about you and your loved ones, because life is such a gift and we have to honor it.
Oh, thank you so much. There's never a bad time to bring that up and to mention that, like, no, we really do need some self-care, and technology is one of the ways I get my self-care. I get my boyfriend loves Xbox gaming. I'm a gamer girl too. I play Candy Crush every day. Some of the New York Times games. So take time to do that. But also get some technology free time. Eric lives in some beautiful mountains. I know you've got some amazing waterfront views over there in New Bern, and Dr. Rush Edwards. Durham's just got so many cool outdoor things. So those are just the people I'm highlighting there, but make sure you do take some care of yourself. We'll kind of wrap up with that note. I feel it just feels very Mr. Rogers to me, but I feel like we have to do it. Something about, I just had to say Mr. Rogers as well. Is what he would do. So we're going to send up a follow-up email, and then Kylie's going to highlight some stuff about Digital Inclusion Week, our form opening survey, and our evaluation survey as well in our follow-up. But also, if anybody has any events they would like to shout out, I know you feel free to put it in the chat or send it to Kylie or myself, and we will send it out in the follow-up email. But thank you all so much for being here today. Oh, not doctor. Well, you are a doctor to me. So you're here, you're smarter than me. You know way more than I do. So you're a doctor. Thank you. Add it to your resume. But Kyla, if you want to share a little bit about Digital Inclusion Week before we.
Absolutely. So it's coming up October 7th through 11th. I'll go ahead and include the link in the chat. This is powered by NDIA, but like I mentioned in our follow-up email, we will have lots of resources of events happening across North Carolina that you can attend. We invite you to add your own. There's a spreadsheet from Dr. Holloway's office. I'm giving everyone doctorates today. Minister Holloway's office. Maybe I'm manifesting for you, Phillip, but huge thank you again on behalf of the Band and Sea and Faith and Community team and IEI in general. We love the partners that are on today. It's so exciting to hear about the Digital Champion grantees through Dr. Gibson and Teresa, and knowing that Dogwood Health Trust and other partners are working in the West. We really are having, like I said earlier, some historic funding coming down, which couldn't be more timely because, as we mentioned today, the need is so great. And the folks here deserve some more capacity, some more folks listening in and taking some things off their plate for sure. So thank you all so much. We look forward to connecting with you through the follow-up email, and we will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day. And again, just really highlighting, we know Western North Carolina is about to get a lot of rain. We know that Eastern North Carolina is recovering as well. We know that students in Eastern North Carolina are doing remote days this week still because of so many issues with buses and roads. And so just really holding that again as a lens we're viewing today of how life and death and important this is to continue on when the weather and things change every day. So thank you all again.
Yes, thank y'all. And again, this is recorded, so feel free to share it out with your organizations as well after this. And everybody have a great day. Go eat a yummy lunch.
Thank you.
All right, bye y'all.
Bye.